Also, Englewood, New Jersey Councilman Michael Wildes here in our studio, and joining us in Los Angeles, Ira Melman, Media Director for the Federation for American Immigration Reform. Ira, let me start with you. What could happen in this district court in Miami? What outcomes could we see?
Well, hopefully what we will see is that this child is sent home to his father where he belongs. We have a father in Cuba who wants his child back, and you have on the other side the radical elements of the Cuban-American community that want to turn this little child into a political symbol. I mean, it is absolutely preposterous that a 6-year-old might be persecuted for his political beliefs. 6-year-olds do not have political beliefs.
Michael, if you were in that courtroom, how would you be arguing for the Miami family?
Well, I think it's very important to understand that this boy came here at the behest of his mother, who does not have an advocate and isn't here. And if you concede the fact that maybe she did parentally abduct the child, why hasn't the father come here to claim his son? Nobody's claiming that the father doesn't belong with the son. But why not give him a day in court now that he's been here? People come from all over to our shores seeking liberty. Give him his day in court. Let's discern why the father hasn't come here. Perhaps he's not here because he actually wants his son to remain here. Nobody's disputing the fact that he belongs with his father. But maybe the boy ought to have a day in court to explore if there are any political asylum claims.
Talking about his father, Ira, let me ask you this. There have been a lot of questions on why the father isn't here, especially for this hearing.
Well, the father, if he was from any other country, would not be required to come to the United States to make his claim. It is only because of this outdated Cuban Adjustment Act that has been on the books since 1966, at the height of the Cold War, that we're even asking the father to come here. If the father had been from any other country, the child would have been sent home to him a long time ago.
Do you think Elian can go back there and lead a normal life, or will he be a political pawn for the rest of his life?
Well, obviously, initially, he will be the center of attention, just as he's been the center of attention here in the United States. But eventually, the publicity will die down, and he will be able to live his life like any normal child in Cuba.
All right, we want to keep you both over through this break for the discussion. We'll continue it on the other side of this break. But next on Fox News Live, New York studio, and joining us from Los Angeles, Ira Melman, Media Director for the Federation for American Immigration Reform. Michael, let me ask you this. You know a thing or two about representing children who have separated from their parents. Tell me about that.
I represent several women whose children were absconded with and taken to other countries against the parents' wills. I have a case right now, I came from my office today, whose child was taken to Lebanon without the parents' permission. We're dealing with the FBI in these cases. These are heart-wrenching matters. I disagree with the gentleman who was interviewed before. There are so many opportunities and chances where my clients have had to march themselves overseas in order to avail themselves of courts in order to return their children here. There's no reason that this father shouldn't come here when the government has conceded that we want you to have your child and we're willing to issue you a visa. Why not give him a day in court, bring in the grandmothers, bring in all the family members, and then once we've seen all of the circumstances, decide what's in his best interest and return him appropriately.
Ira?
Well, the presumption ought to be that the father should get his son back. He ought not to be dragged to the United States for no apparent reason when a father in any other country of the world would merely have to say, I want my child back, and that child would routinely be sent home to his father, the only natural surviving parent.
Michael, the family wants political asylum for Elian. The government says he's 6 years old, he's too young. Is he too young?
He's not too young. There is no law prohibiting people from applying for political asylum. At a young and tender age, typically people are included on the forms of their parents. And when we apply for asylum for young children, they're included, as many countries include children on passports, in a parent's application. The question here is who speaks for the child. Immigration says that the that the father speaks for the child. The parent, the boy's family says that the uncle speaks for the child.
Right.
Typically, the state courts have relegated this and taken charge of who speaks for children. That's why we're in federal court, to decide actually who does and what rights he has.
Ira, your last thought on that before we wrap up?
Well, the father speaks for the child. The father has not requested political asylum. Therefore, the child is not eligible for political asylum and ought to be returned to his father.
All right, we want to thank you both for joining us here to talk about this as we await the outcome of the U.S. District Court in Miami on just who will get guardianship of Elian Gonzalez and what his future will be. Michael Wildes, immigration attorney, and Ira Melman joining us from Los Angeles. Thank you both.
Pleasure.
Coming up, Lauren Green drops by the Fox News desk for a check of the day's headlines. Plus, political jokes and wisecracks have taken a new turn as Bill Maher attacks George W. Bush's mom.
Elian Gonzalez will explain. And the Pope is asking for forgiveness. 6-year-old Elian Gonzalez hanging in the balance still. A federal court judge in Miami is weighing arguments on whether to interfere with an immigration ruling to send the boy back to his father in Cuba or have him stay here with his U.S. relatives.
So is this international drama almost over? Well, joining us today with some insight, our attorney Mel Sachs and immigration attorney and city councilman of Englewood, New Jersey, Michael Wilds. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Michael, let me start off with you. You just spoke with the attorney for the family in Miami today. What are their feelings, or what is his feeling, I should say?
I did speak to the boy's representative, the family's representative, that is, and they're very concerned as to the propriety of the whole asylum proceeding here. The boy actually is going to be politically prominent if he were to be returned to Cuba. And they have a lot of evidence showing that people of this sort have been segregated in the past and have had to actually been persecuted politically. Castro will use them as a puppet in the years to come to make sure that the democracy of the United States and its process will be trounced.
Does the representative feel good or bad about the court proceedings this past week?
He feels very optimistic that the federal court will accept jurisdiction and that they will have their day in court. And he also reported that the boy is psychologically doing very well at this time as well.
Which is good to hear.
Which is very
regardless
good
of which side you're on.
Which is very good. I mean, you might want to argue that the mother abducted the child from Cuba and brought him to the United States, but ultimately the fact is the boy deserves a day in court.
Mel, the situation with this judge possibly being asked to overrule the Justice Department and its ruling to send Elian back, is that unprecedented or is that done?
Well, it's certainly clear that the federal courts do maintain the jurisdiction in this case and not the state courts. The Immigration and Naturalization Service really is the one who has control over anybody who comes here into this country. The federal court here will decide in accordance with both American law and international law that it's the best interests of the child are met by a person who can speak out for the child. And it is, frankly, precedent, both here and in other countries throughout the world, that the parent has the say for a child of this age. This 6-year-old boy should be with his father, and his father should be the one to make this decision.
Well, Michael, you've been down that road before. You say the father should come here.
Now, I've represented women, unfortunately, whose children have been absconded with by spouses and have gone to Middle Eastern countries. One argues and wonders, father acquiesced, that he permitted his former wife to bring the child here. Why isn't the father here? What is the conduct of the grandmothers? What is in the best interest of this young boy who still wants his mommy back? Let's bring it to a court and then decide.
Mel, let me ask you, being a lawyer, do you think a decision will come soon from the federal judge? And if so, how soon after would the boy be sent back or find a permanent home here?
I have every reason to believe that the federal court will determine this case in a prompt manner. And
meaning weeks, days, months?
It's been months.
I would say that it would be probably within the next 2 weeks, that the federal court will decide what is the best interest of this child, and recognizing the fact that he does have a natural parent. The Immigration and Naturalization Service has made all efforts and found out that this parent is in fact a good, caring, loving parent. That's what's first and foremost. And even though there's political controversy here and there's an issue of asylum, the only time anyone has ever been given asylum here has been a situation where there was a boy that was older than him, but a 6-year-old boy cannot make a decision.
Mel Sachs,
Gentlemen,
Michael Wilds, we have to wrap it up, but we appreciate you being here today. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Straight ahead on Fox News Live, Pope John Paul II speaks out saying he's sorry for the sin.